What is something that you would never confess to your family? Story 1. The fact that I've been depressed for more than half my life. I remember a family friend had committed suicide and my parents were saying I don't understand how someone could do that. I calmly said I could really relate to why someone would do that. The look of disbelief and desperation in my mother's face broke my heart, and I realized how she had interpreted what I said. I don't live at home, and for almost a month afterwards she would call me every day to check on me and make sure I was okay and tell me that I'm loved, and if I ever needed to talk about anything she and my father were always there for me. Story 2. I'm really happy to only see them once or twice a year due to living 3,000 miles away. I just can't stand them. They all gossip and talk shit and spin their wheels so much you can't even have a normal conversation with any of them. It's all drama and always has been. I never understood how and why I was so depressed my entire life. Found escapism through alcohol and partying. Since I've lived across the country I'm sober, have a super awesome family and I barely ever see them. It's great. Story 3. I have a daughter. I've never wanted kids, but being young, dumb and full of cum I got my fiancée pregnant, but with our issues we couldn't deal with actually taking care of a kid, so we put her up for adoption. The family who got her was very excited and had been trying for almost a decade to have one of their own but couldn't. They had just gotten through the background stuff the month before she was born and this was their first chance at actually adopting. They were super happy. My fiancé cried at giving her to them, and I just wanted to go get ducked up and forget it. We got married and divorced a few years back, and I got my life together, but occasionally I think of her, but can't bring myself to try and chat. I would have ruined that child's life. Story 4. That I don't feel like part of the family. I feel like I don't belong, and like I'm just a substitute for when my brother isn't around. I don't feel respected or wanted. I feel like my girlfriend's family likes me more than they do, and if I had the funds to I would've moved out long ago, and they probably wouldn't have seen or heard from me since, apart from maybe Christmas, and that is only because of my cousins. Story 5. My younger aunt and I almost fooled around when we were kids. We didn't know about each other, and when we both met she was 13, I was 15. As we grew up there was a ton of flirting and sexual tension. It never came to anything, thank God, but we had some intimate conversations around it. Oddly enough, both of us are very close today and have even spoke about how ridiculous the whole thing was. Edit for some FAQ in comments. Technically my half aunt. Mom had me at 16. Grandpa had an affair with another woman. Produced my aunt 2 years later and subsequently left grandmother for other woman. For the record, both of those women are lovely. I rarely see the grandmother who lives far away, but the other woman lives in the same state and sees her great grandson and I with some frequency. Neither of us want to bone the other anymore, and at least one of us is happily married. We are both embarrassed, but I think she's more embarrassed than I am. That being said, she is very attractive and younger me fantasized about it a lot, and I will always have those fantasies with me. We have children and those children see each other infrequently, attend each other's birthday parties, yada yada. We've rarely talked about it, but when we have it's very dismissive, like what the hell was wrong with us type thing. Obviously, it's always there for me, and I'm pretty sure for her. I can't interact with her without thinking, hey, remember that time we talked about fooling around and then never did? Story 6. As much as I try, it's next to impossible to articulate how they made us, my siblings and myself, feel as children and the deep-seated emotional trauma that brings with it. We love each other even now, and by no means were they terrible people or the kind of parents that I'd have been taken away with. They did their best and tried so hard, but they aren't perfect and their mistakes cut deep. I still have a relationship with both of them, and I love them dearly. I guess that's probably why I'll never tell them how awful it all was. I physically can't bring myself to it. It's like trying to talk when your tongue goes numb. I can't imagine breaking it to them that they sucked. Story 7. My extended family thinks I've had no career or salary advancement for 10 years. I play a bumbling idiot with them who just can't catch a break. Reason being, they're a cavalcade of self-inflicted sob stories and GoFundMe grifters. I don't want to be hit up for loans every other week. I'm actually a senior manager at an established consulting firm. If they had a good reason for their misery other than got drunk with the money for bills and didn't pay them, I would help them out. Pretending to be a struggling idiot deflects any attempts at soliciting me for money. Note, I live out of state from them, and they don't travel. So I only have to maintain this foolish charade for Thanksgiving and Christmas. My parents are in on it. Story 8. I joined the Navy to get away from them, not because I felt some sort of patriotic duty, like they tell people. I liked it. I found a purpose. I got great training. That got me the job I have today. But I did it because I hated it at home. Story 9. That I don't agree with the half of their BS that sometimes range anything from racist comments, laziness, lifestyle etc. Not anything special, but it's a bit annoying when you want to strike up a constructive debate, but it would only turn to yelling. Story 10. That I'm actually married already. My now husband and I ran off and got married early due to some personal issues and Ovid didn't help. We are set to get married in November. His immediate family knows, and my friends do, but definitely not my mother. She would have a fit. I'm waiting till I get my stimulus check, if she ever finds out, so I can give her the money back, if she wants it for my dress. Story 11. This is way too scary. I was molested repeatedly as a young boy by a neighbor for about a year. Older kid who was evidently really ducked up. Having low self-esteem as I did, I knew it was wrong, but didn't know what to do, and somehow felt responsible for it. I eventually told my mom, but she didn't believe me, I think because she didn't want to deal with the fact that she left me alone way too much as a child. To this day I have only a very superficial relationship with my mother, and can't forgive her for not believing me. I spent 20 years wasted on meth trying to deal with this, before I went to rehab, and got some help for my drug use, and my emotional wreckage. That was hard as duck to type. Thanks for being you. Story 12. My second husband, that they all think is wonderful, has cheated on me. And it's actually far worse than the cheating that caused my first divorce from my high school sweetheart I had spent 15 years and had 2 children with. And I daily wish that, if I had to work on a marriage, it were my first. I'm going through the motions, and I smile and nod while they gush about him. If they knew he had slept with 5 other women in the course of our relationship, it would be awful. I found out about all of them in the course of a few months, a year after we married. Had I even had a suspicion before, I wouldn't be here. But he's a cop, and I was a RN in NP school with 2 kids. He's in his 40s, I'm in my late 30s. I ducked up by thinking we were busy adults and I didn't need to babysit a grown man. I was wrong. Story 13. I'm bisexual. I'm not ashamed of it at all. I'm out to everyone non-family. I've been with my boyfriend for 4 years and I just see no reason to risk them freaking out about it, and I'm not that close with them anyway. Story 14. I ducking hate my paternal grandfather. He spent his life abusing my grandmother physically, mentally, and emotionally, and now he's demented, and we are trying to get him committed to a psychiatric facility. He has recently taken to grabbing her arm and not letting her go, screaming all through the night so she can't sleep, and demanding sexual acts from her. We are afraid he could suffocate her in their own bed with a pillow. He can't get out of bed from years of type 2 diabetes and a whole bunch of other stuff, but now his mind is finally going, and he talks all the time about wanting to kill himself. Last week he had a mouthful of morphine pills, but didn't end up swallowing them. I wish he did. I wish my grandmother would inject too much insulin and kill him. Story 15. Probably that I don't believe in God anymore. I grew up in a decently religious household where we went to church every Sunday, and I was really involved in my youth group from middle school until I left for college. Once I was in college, I finally started questioning religion a lot more, and it wasn't long before I realized it made no sense at all to me, and that I had mainly loved going to church so much in high school because all of my friends were there, and it was my primary social outlet. At this point, I think my mom might have suspicions. But in my mind, it would only do harm to confirm them and tell her, because I'm still able to be my 100% self around her, and it would really hurt my parents' emo. My grandma on the other hand is extremely X1000 religious. This is where I have more issues, because for one, I have to pretend I'm a totally different person around her, which as I get older, really sucks and makes me question my relationship with her. And 2, I know if I told her I didn't believe in God, she would absolutely never talk to me again. It's a real shitty situation, but in the end, I'd rather not stir the pot and stick to just calling her once a month, to have the same meaningless conversation we always do to keep her happy. Story 16. I absolutely do know why no computer in the house seems to be able to access any Fox/Sky/Newslet website and could fix it in 20 minutes, but just like my parents refused to get internet at home until after I'd finished high school in 2008 for my own good, I'm now doing something for their own good. Also, I was the one who reported my brother's first girlfriend to the child abuse report, leading to her abuse of my nephew being investigated, my brother having a mental breakdown and my mum having to be primary caregiver to the nephew. No regrets, but for the stress it caused it's not something I'm admitting to. Story 17. When I was around 6 I heard that cats always land on their feet, so I thought I would test this out on our family cat. I picked up the cat and dropped her over the banister above the stairs in our house. She landed on her side then ran away and hid for a while. When I got older I remembered a separate incident of her getting pregnant and all but 2 of the kittens being stillborn. I have no idea if she was pregnant when I dropped her over the banister, but it haunts me as an adult to think about. I'm taking that story to my grave. Story 18. I sort of tried to self-medicate my post-Navy depression in college by having a lot of Shreks. And this isn't some weird humbler brag, this is a confession that I felt like I had lost some semblance of control, and Shreks gave me this idea that I was in control. It was not healthy, and I finally sought therapy, but not until my body count was in the 60s. I feel gross just thinking about it. Story 19. That I rehomed their dog and told them he passed away while they were on vacation. Hear me out though, my parents had a really anxious dog that was kind of a nightmare after their other dog passed away. He was up there in age and really needed more open space and exercise than they were able to give him. My mom made Craigslist ads for him multiple times, but always cried and deleted them out of guilt. They loved him, but they knew they weren't giving him the best quality of life in his older years. The dog was becoming a burden on my parents and their old age, and no one was winning in this situation. I had a friend who lived on a huge wooded property, and she had 2 other dogs who knew and got on great with my parents' dog. So when my parents left for vacation, my friend and I brought the dog out to her home, and there he lived for the rest of his days, about 6 months. I told my parents he passed, and they were sad, but I could tell they were relieved too. Their dog had a wonderful time living his best life out in the woods with his friends, and it ended up being a way better situation for him. He got lots of love, exercise, and treats, and he passed away in his sleep on his comfy bed. Story 20. Coming from a Muslim family, basically anything that has to do with my beliefs and almost everything I do, I live quite the haram Islamically forbidden lifestyle, but I don't identify with that religion anymore, so it's okay for me. Also I'm LGBT+, so there's that. Never an option to come out for me. I'm not really sad about it. It's not my fault that my parents guilt me with everything I ever told them. I just know I won't do the same with any future children I might have. Story 21. That I was depressed really badly and had a really bad withdrawal from prednisone, steroid, and almost killed myself. I was sick, bronchitis, lived alone, and no one told me I was supposed to taper off. I was already depressed, and then the withdrawal messed with my head so bad I had my pistol in my hand more than once. Right about then, this girl I had a crush on messaged me on Facebook. We talked for hours. I was sobbing, and she held me together. Turns out she had a crush on me too. I kept my head together long enough to overcome the withdrawal while talking to her every day. I got better and finished working on myself and crawling out of my depression. We got engaged last March, just signed on a house today, but not a day goes by that I don't think about if I'd still be here if she hadn't messaged me when she did. I'm fine now, great even. I've got hobbies I love now, and our relationship is fantastic. But man, I swear, she's an angel sent by God. I know that's cliche, but the timing was impeccable. Story 22. That I wanna get multiple fake IDs and a bunch of wigs and pretend I'm different people when I go out, just for the pleasure of people never really knowing that I'm under disguise, and they will live the rest of their lives not knowing who I really am or what I look like. I also want them to find all this in a storage unit after I die with a bunch of other stuff, and have them living with the fact that I lived multiple lives and they never truly knew who I was at all. I want the sweet pleasure of ducking them up for the rest of their lives. Story 23. That I don't feel like a member of the family. Okay, let me explain. So my mom, dad and sis were born in Russia in the same city, then they moved to Belgium in Europe, and then I was born, and they still can't let go of their Russian culture, and me never being born and raised in Russia, I did not understand any jokes, people, what they were talking about, etc, etc. And slowly I started to grow apart from them because I just did not feel like a member of the family, and my daddy's, for some reason, really into sport, boxing, and of course me being skinny and not able to gain weight by eating, my father wants me to do sport to gain muscles so I would not look skinny for the rest of my life. But that's already too late. I just can't and never was able to relate to them. Also, I hate sports, and he forces me to do 100 push-up 50 pull-ups every single day, and I'm growing sick of my father because he also is a person that gets very mad very quickly and almost calls me on a daily basis an idiot if I do something wrong, and now I'm 15 and all I want is. Story 24. I used Shrek's work as a way to support myself after becoming a know-it-all and moving out. I was 19 at the time and also studying biochemistry. I was abandoned by both my parents for the first 2 years. My father eventually came around because he started paying child support to support my brother as he got his own place and went to school and legally had to do for one what he did for the other. I actually had a sign my mother gave to me about being a teen and thinking I know everything about the real world. Maybe one day I'll find it. I stared at it every day I was in my mother's house as a reminder that while I didn't know it all, leaving my jail was always an option. I don't think she expected for me to take it that way. Shrek's work brought its own shackles, but I gained freedom from a narcissistic mother who used me as a scapegoat and personal assistant. It's been an incredibly difficult road, but in the long run, I've won. Story 25. Okay, no, this is something this thread has been looking for, but it may be unsatisfying. Growing up, I had a bunch of gatherings with the family as where I'm from. People usually have gigantic families. I always forget the names because it was so much people. Also didn't help my dad was in a traditional band as well, so I always grew up with different people in the house. Anyways, my cousin, F, and I grew close in our early to late teen years in all these gathering, playing games and running in the hallways. It was genuine fun and it felt like a sister I never had. Wish it stayed like that. Something like that world lasted so much longer. As we matured into our early 20s, she became aware of how well endowed she got and started to tease things like trying out different outfits before going out. I know that's probs normal to ask for advice and all. She definitely helped me out with my decisions for fashion and wardrobe, which thank God I had awful choice and stuck with Mars oversized button-up shirt, sleeved shirts and polos. But soon on, she would throw on lingerie asking if it'd be good for the night, and me, being the thick-headed, told her of course not. Too promiscuous, wear something else. She had a heart condition where it required to go to the hospital every now and then. After one particular visit, she had to show me one of the red spots from her last visit. You know where they place these kinda suction cup thingies on your body to get a reading or something. Later on the night, we got some White Claws to pregame, as well as coke. We experimented with party drugs and LSD growing up. First time with coke and or I knew that you could drink so much more. First warning, and I had my gin. She didn't like hard liquor as she blacks out after just 2 shots. But man, oh man, we decided against going out and just chilling out laughing our asses off to Rick and Morty. This is where it got hazy and admittedly loose. We had a tickle fight because she kept crying about her insecurities, and I knew my old tactic of tickling always brought a smile to her face, forgetting everything beforehand. But I vaguely remember falling down the stairs with her, but I blacked out when I held her. That was a little over a year ago, and we haven't talked or hung out since. Well, I had my stupid drunken texts every now and then, but nothing. What's worse is that the family gatherings are so annoying and boring now. She doesn't go to them anymore, but I still gotta go cause my parents are kinda the center of it all. Story 26. That I have dissociative identity disorder, which started at age 3, and the 18 years of sexual abuse that followed. I think they know nothing about it, but being the sweep it under the rug, don't talk about anything, that can burst our happy little bubble of denial type people that they are. But I could be very wrong. I'm not sure which would be worse to know for sure, so I'll never bring it up. Either they knew what was happening and did nothing, or they lived with a disturbingly fragmented child who wasn't coping with life at all. I was a walking nervous breakdown and very obviously self-mutilating from an early age, along with a host of other worrying behaviors, and they dismissed it entirely, with never a word said. I'll be 43 next month. I'm doing great now, happy and healthy, but it has been a very long haul to get to this point. The greatest healer for me has been helping others in similar situations, using my own horrific experiences for good, the ultimate turning dog shit into diamond superpower experience. Story 27. That I ruined my life by being a compulsive liar, specifically in high school, but also throughout most of my life. Due to childhood trauma, mostly started after vice. Principal in private elementary school gave me a severe beating in front of kids in 4th grade due to me not being in my seat when the homeroom teacher was absent. The whole backstory about that elementary school is pretty complex, but what happened there marked me for life. I began hating myself to a point where I would imagine myself being a completely different person. A different identity / background. A different life. Doesn't matter if my inspiration came from movies or television. I truly wish to be somebody else since forever. I now know it is called maladaptive daydreaming. I grew up with my mother, who was a single mom. Father left before I was born and came to the US to join with the rest of his family. His family have been here since the 60s. I was raised as a sheltered, good-mannered and sensitive kid whose mother was overly sweet yet too innocent or naive that she always got taken advantage even by her own family. I was taught to turn the other cheek because that's what Jesus and good people do. I suspect that's what she did because that was her nature, and she also saw me as defenseless and fragile, short skinny young boy who had health problems due to being born premature and did not receive breast milk for almost 1 year because my mom got really sick due to medical malpractice with the C-section she had for me. She wanted me to be a nice guy to a T. I came to the US in middle school, to one very rough middle school, because of my low self-esteem and all of a sudden wanting to learn to stand up for myself. I pretended to be a sort of drug dealer, 13 years old / 8th grade, with connections by hanging out with the disruptive kids, who were rivals to other rivals who were bullies to me and some of my classmates / friends. Mind to say, everyone who was a badass kid was a 100% connected to a gang or an actual gang member. DC metropolitan area. I stole what I found stolen from other kids by pretending I found a lost item. I sold it in front of them, few feet apart, to another kid, and they looked, gang of 7, at me in the eye as I looked back at them counting the money boldly. Needless to say, that was the catalyst to most of my life's mistakes. After that it began escalating to murder attempts, not more than 3 or 4, but it was because I was not the only target. There were many gangs fighting each other on my life before school, during lunch, and after school. Either that or severe beatings, who were pretty common. Even substitute teachers received beatings / jumpings, and I guess for some reason they still had to come back eventually for work. I skipped 8th grade dance / prom because I knew people were gonna come after me. I mostly feared loose bullets onto others because I always some way or somehow had been willing to pay for my sins of being a bad person at the end of the day. My childhood nature drilled that into me, but I did not want to ruin it for others because of my fault, and that's one of the reasons why I skipped 8th grade dance, and graduation also was for my family. I skipped both. Living with my father and his family did not help my condition at all. My father was alcoholic and was absent most of the time. He was also narcissistic and borderline racist. He made jokes about non-white people. We are Hispanic. His side of the family is white Hispanic though. Both sides of families. I look nothing like him. Completely like my mom and my sister. We are not white. We have some of his features, but it is mostly a replica of my mom for me and my sister. That made me have low self-esteem. Additionally, in high school I went to one of the 3 feeder schools that my middle school had. Most of my enemies went to a different school, so that was good, because that meant it was gonna be a new start for me. Wrong, it was for half of the year until some of the students from that another school probably informed about my past to other kids. After all, they were all rough ghetto schools. I was beginning to be targeted out of nowhere by older kids, even seniors who were gang members, and it was very weird even for some of my new classmates that just met me that year. They recommended to move or transfer. I did both. That was another mistake. In senior year of high school, it was a complete shitshow, yet now it was only due to my mistakes/sins of being a compulsive liar to my crush, who also had a crush on me. It is way too complex to explain it without going more on detail, but it left me brokenhearted, humiliated, bullied, but I knowingly think I deserved it because I started my lies, guilty, full of regret and even more self-hate and desire to die. I'm now 25. Yet I feel like I ruined my life because throughout my whole life I just could not learn to accept myself and understand that it's okay to be me. I did not have to pretend to be a different person just because I consider myself inferior due to my features/background/identity. My mother passed away 3 years ago, and I did not get to reconnect with her properly until the end of her terminal cancer due to college and work. She wanted to live with me and my sister someday. It was her dream. I hate myself to death because I was distracted with my traumas that were a result of my mistakes in life. I should have been a normal person. Perhaps it should have been for my middle school enemies to finish the job and kill me. I do not fear death. I never did. But I don't want to cause more anguish, especially to my sister. I'm living just to die. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more daily videos.